How do you know when it's the right time to leave your job to work full-time on your business? That's what we're going to talk about today. I have a lot of great tips to share with you, having gone through it myself and having at this point helped over 1,000 of my own students go from employee to entrepreneur. So that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so let's get into it. The very first thing I want to address is the idea that is really sexy and glamorous and that's really popular. To really think about an entrepreneur is someone who just goes all in as a big risk taker and just burns the bridges and goes into it full throttle on their business. And I will tell you, I definitely went through that. There was such a long stretch of time when I was in my job, when I would pick up the phone, I would call my parents. And I remember saying, this was every other week or so. And I'd say, all right, next month, that's the month I'm turning in my notice. This is it. I just can't take it anymore. Maybe something would happen at work, or I would just be super motivated, or I would just think, this is what I need to do, because we see so many images of people who are the exceptions to the rule, who've really just gone all in and been really successful burning the bridges. What we don't see, because it's not as sexy or glamorous, are the much larger percentage of people who did it in a much more risk minimized, much more safe way that was also better for their sanity, to be honest. And what I ended up actually doing, I'm going to talk more about this, is I ended up actually replacing my entire income before I turned in my notice, and I'm so glad that I did. So the first thing I want to talk about that is it even possible to fully replace your income before you leave your job? So this is up to you. And of course, everyone's situation is different, so you have to take that into account. For me, at the time, this was quite a few years ago, I was in a really great job. I had a good salary, I was in a really great role, I had a great team, and I was part of because I had been part of a company that was a startup when I joined and then gone public. So I knew I was in a really lucky position where if I left my job and I wanted to come back because my business didn't work out, it would be hard for me to find another job at a similar role with a similar level of responsibility and salary. And so this was not a decision I could make lightly. Also, I needed to pay the bills. So I wasn't going to, I couldn't, my parents are not super wealthy, I didn't have a trust fund. I couldn't rely on anyone else to support me if things didn't go well. I was not going to put that burden on anyone else. And so I knew I had to figure out a way to replace my income before I turned in my notice and be really responsible about this. The problem with that is at the time, I couldn't find anyone else who was talking about this and who was showing how they'd done it. I would find examples of people who had started businesses right out of college, so they didn't really have a job to replace. Maybe they'd stayed with their parents for a while. I'd find examples of people who took a really big pay cut and went into a business doing maybe freelancing or some sort of business that just made them a few $100s or maybe even $1,000 or max $2,000 if even a month. And I knew that just wasn't going to cut it for me. And so what I did was it took me quite a few years to figure out, all right, what can I do that I'm qualified to do, that I would enjoy doing, and that would also allow me to replace my salary. And that's how I realized I could just take my job skills and turn that into a coaching/consulting business. And that is what allowed me to take my job skills at the time, which were in digital advertising, turn that into a coaching/consulting business, and get clients to be able to replace my income before I left my job. And that's why, after having done that successfully myself, I realized, look, no one else is talking about this. And so let me really teach people the steps I went through to be able to take my existing skills and knowledge at the time to be able to turn that into a business. So the first thing I want you to realize is that yes, it's not easy. By no means. It does take a lot of work and discipline. And for quite a few months, I didn't have a social life because all I was doing was working on my business or on my job. That was it. But it was worth it because I was able to turn in my notice without being worried about, am I going to be able to pay the bills next month? And to really know that, okay, this is possible. So that's really what I want you to take away. With the right business model, this is possible. It's not easy. It does take a good amount of work, but the main thing is if you really want it, look, a few months or maybe even a year or two of really putting in that work for the rest of your life, hey, that seems like a really great trade-off to me. Now, I'm super risk averse, so you don't necessarily need to replace your entire income before you turn in your notice. What I usually recommend to my students is that you be making consistently 2 times what your take-home salary is in your business before you turn in your notice. And you do that for at least 2-3 months, depending on what your risk tolerance level is and how consistent your income is based on the systems that you set up in your business. So basically, the reason why you don't want to just make the same amount in your business that you're making in your job is because as a business, you've got other expenses. It's not just about, okay, everything my business makes is what I make. You've got to pay if for an online business, at least thankfully, the overhead is much lower, but you still have to pay maybe a few team members for tech costs to host your website, maybe for some advertising. There are just a few things that kind of add up, and especially as your business grows, those costs are going to grow as well. So at this point, we've talked about 2 considerations that need to be taken into account. The first is that you should definitely have your business idea. You should know how you're going to get clients. You should ideally have gotten a few clients already before you even think about turning in your notice. And that way, because building a business takes work. There's a lot of stress when you're starting out and you're just building your audience and your brand recognition online. And so the worst place to be is to be stressing about your business and then also stressing about how you're going to pay the bills. So be thankful for the job that allows you to not have to worry about how you're going to keep the lights on, put food in your belly, and really take care of yourself and your loved ones if applicable. So that's the really first consideration. And the sooner you get clear on that, look, the sooner you can move on to the next step. Now, for ideally, especially if you have a good job and you don't hate your boss, you don't hate your life, it's not amazing, it's not the best, but it's not the worst either, then what I do recommend is that at the very least, you have 2 consistent months where your business makes 2 times what you're making in your take-home salary. And the reason for that is so that you're going to be able to just transition smoothly from your job into your business without having to worry about taking that dip in income. So that's number 2. Consideration number 3, the last consideration, is something that I came up with. Well, so the term I think about is your 9-to-5 escape velocity. So my background, my very first, and my schooling and my very first job was in engineering. I was actually an engineer for the International Space Station. So there is that nerdy side of me. And the idea of escape velocity is how fast a rocket needs to be going to escape Earth's gravity and go into outer space. And so when I was thinking about leaving my 9-to-5, I thought about, okay, my 9-to-5 escape velocity, basically how much momentum I need to have built in my business to be able to break free of that, because we've got our existing life, our existing family, our existing just emotions, our existing just day-to-day that's good enough and what we're used to. And so to break out of it, it takes something that is a little bit stronger than just the day-to-day. And the best way to do that is to build so much momentum in your business that it becomes kind of like a juggernaut. You can't stop it. You just want to go on the ride. And so what that really entails is basically growing your business as quickly as possible using the peace of mind that you have from your job because your bills are paid, using maybe some of the income you have from your job so that you can use it to buy faster results, like outsource certain things, or maybe buy paid traffic so that your audience grows faster. Whatever works best for you and whatever you're comfortable with within your budget, of course, to really build that momentum so that more and more people are seeing you. You're getting to a point where people are reaching out to you and inquiring about how they can work with you. Your content is getting more notice, more engagement, more views. And you're at this point where you know, hey, if I leave, things are just going to get better. I'm not going to be worried next month about where my audience is coming from. So the specific way I created maximum escape velocity for myself was this. So the first few months of really going all in and working on my business while in my job, what I did was I just hit the ground running, did everything I could to get as many one-on-one consulting clients as I could. And so what that allowed me to do was really build a ton of momentum. But I knew, look, I'm going to be capped with the amount of one-on-one clients I can work with soon, and then I'm going to leave my job and have my income be capped. And so what I did was, while I was in my job, this took a lot of work. It was worth it for me, and I'm going to share with you so you can decide for yourself if it's going to be worth it for you, is I created a leveraged course so that I could work with more people, do it at a lower price, and then also have not my income or my time be capped, be able to leverage both of those things. And so I launched it while I was still in my job. It was, again, a lot of work. I never want anyone to think, oh, it was so easy. But again, you have to weigh the pros and cons, right? And so I launched it. And what that allowed me to do was to know, okay, I've tested my process for leveraging my time and income. I know how to do it successfully, so that even if the first time I'd failed, I still had the safety of my job. But because I was able to do it successfully, I knew, okay, my launch system works, I've got this proven product now, and I can go out there and sell it again. And this was also really important. Because I got an influx of customers, I got about 16 customers through that first course launch. After that course was over, it was only 7 weeks long. I helped people get such amazing results. A third of them went on to continue to work with me as either one-on-one clients, or they signed up for my next bigger group program that was coming. And so that is actually how I created maximum escape velocity for myself, because at the time that group program was ending and those clients were going into my one-on-one or my bigger program, that created a massive cash burst for me. And also what it did was it set the ball rolling for me to get my next big program out, because I had to deliver it. I delivered to the people I promised it to and who had put down money to say, yes, I'm in the next few months. And so knowing that, having that massive cash burst, knowing that there were already people who were interested in my next program, I was able to turn in my notice and say, hey, I've got this massive momentum now. I've created that juggernaut in my business so that I'm excited to be turning in my notice. I mean, it was still scary. I remember the moment I turned it in, right afterwards, I went and locked myself into a conference room and was like, what did I just do? Even though I created the best safety net possible for myself. And it is what it is. And so through doing that and creating that massive escape velocity, I was able to get to this point where I turned in my notice, and then I prepared for my next launch, and using all the momentum, all the learnings, all the strategies that I already proven and tested while in my business, my next launch basically doubled the entire revenue of my business up to that point. And that's when I knew, all right, this was the right choice. And that's why I was so glad I waited, because if I hadn't, it would have taken me a lot longer to build my business, because I didn't have the confidence to take risks to invest in my business, or I wouldn't have, that I did when I was in my job, because I had the safety of my salary coming in. And that made a massive difference. And that also made me honestly have to be really a lot more efficient with my time as well, so that I was really focused on just the things that mattered, which actually helped me get faster growth and better results for my clients as well. And so all that combined together, that's the amount of escape velocity that I knew I wanted to have to be able to leave my job. And so, of course, those three considerations are different for everyone, but those are things that absolutely need to be taken into account. And so that's what I really want you to be thinking about, and really using that to decide the right time for you. Because again, there's just way too much glamorized information about the rare unicorns, the exception to the rule, who are able to burn the bridges and make it work. But there are so many more people who you don't hear about who do that, and then they have to go back to a job. And I don't want that to happen to you. I want it to be so that when you leave that 9 to 5, you are never having to go back. And the considerations, the tips that I just shared with you, thinking through those things and really hitting each of those benchmarks that I talked about is going to help ensure that that's what happens. You turn in your notice once and then you are done. Maybe it takes you a little bit longer, and in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that much longer, a few months or a year or two. But then when you're done with the 9 to 5, you are done. And you're going full steam ahead with this amazing business that you really love and enjoy, and you're just increasing your income and impact every single month. So that's what I've got for you today. Hopefully you found that really helpful, and it's gonna help you really hopefully be a little bit more patient or decide the right time in leaving your job so that you are moving smoothly from employee to entrepreneur. If you found this helpful, please share it with your entrepreneurial friends. Subscribe to be notified every week when I release another new video on building your own online coaching and/or course business. And I will see you next time.